Today's topic is going to be compliance action planning and profiles in Sensitive Content Manager. So let's move right along with the agenda. At first, we are going to be looking at the Methodologies information governance process. The next thing we are going to look at is in Sensitive Content Manager how to create a new profile. And then the third thing we want to talk about is how to do compliance action planning in Sensitive Content Manager. So let's take a look at the information governance process. I just wanted to show you this as an overview of the information governance process in general here. The first step is typically to come up with a governance plan, which would contain all the objectives that you would have. So as you can see here with the boxes, the first box is called Plan. Why are we doing this? What are we looking for? Next box is going to be Discover. You want to figure out where the sensitive data resides. Then you move on to Classify, which is labeling the types of data you're looking for. And then we'll move down to the second row and go to the Determine box. What action should be taken when the data has been located. And then moving on to the Secure box, how is sensitive content secured? And finally, the Monitor stage, how do we monitor the data and how are we monitoring it going forward? So this presentation has to do with Discover, Classify, Determine, and to some extent the Secure steps of the process. Now let's take a look at the options we have for discovering, classifying, and determining, and then finally securing sensitive content from Sensitive Content Manager perspective. Going into Sensitive Content Manager, you see that dashboard there in the background. We need to go ahead and try to define a scope of our analysis. That is the analysis profile. So how do you do that? To create a new profile, you need to go to the configuration section and choose profiles, as you can see here on the picture. And then we'll take you to the profiles list, listing all the current profiles. You will get some profiles out of the box with the tool. From here, there's an option to create a new profile, which will take you to the screen on the following page. And this is the screen you'll see. So before we move on, let me just explain what a profile is. So a profile is a collection of search and analysis guidelines for content. Each profile is made up of, like the steps you can see in the top there, search terms, weights, file thresholds, and regular expressions, or regex. Sensitive Content Manager comes with several profiles out of the box, as I said before, and the file analysis criteria for the individual client organization obviously may be different than the standard profiles that are available. So for that, there is a custom profile option where it's able to group and weight the different subsets of the predefined search terms, and you can add custom search terms for sensitive data types, or you can analyze data that falls outside the common definitions of the PII, PHI, or financial data that you might have. Sensitive Content Manager does scan a lot, but not all file types, but it includes Excel, Word, PowerPoint documents, Outlook files, log files, compressed files, text files, PDFs, and so on. So let's go to the search terms. A search term is a word or any simple or complex alphanumeric pattern that represents sensitive content in a document. For example, in the PII profile, these search terms are the personal identifiable information like a person's name, date of birth, financial account number, address, email address, etc. So each content search uses a set of terms, search terms in a profile, and you can define new search terms as needed. When you create a new profile, you can simply drag and drop the search terms you want from the search terms list into the profile search terms. Next, let's talk about the weights. So every search term has a weight associated to it. The weight determines the importance of a possible content match for a specific analysis profile. then in turn, the weight factor combined with the number of content matches encountered during an analysis job make up the file score. So in the bottom of the page, we have something called file score thresholds. And the thresholds are file scores that are calculated during a file analysis to define alert levels for the content matches. So file score thresholds are customizable, but you will need to set values for what is considered mild, moderate, or severe thresholds respectively. And also note that the file thresholds scale is set to 0 to 100 by default. Let's move on to regular expressions. The regular expressions, or regex, defines the search syntax for the search terms. So the analysis engine matches the file contents with a search term based on the regex syntax specified in a profile. The profile can use standard search terms, or you can create your own custom search terms based on the regex expressions. So once a regular expression has been added as a search term, you can actually select it from the search term list and add it to new profiles going forward. You have to be aware, though, that the regular expressions for the predefined search terms in the Sensitive Content Manager, they cannot be modified. So that's what that was really about the new profiles. You can also edit the existing out-of-the-box analysis profiles rather than creating new ones. So there is an edit option in the tool as well. And once the profiles are defined, you can set up scan jobs to define the scope of the content, and then when and how frequent you want the content analysis to run. And then at some point, when it's done discovering, you will get some results that you can then use going forward to act on, basically. So that takes us into the next piece, next point on my agenda. As being able to scan and get a report with results is obviously great, but it wouldn't be worth much if you're not able to act on the things you scan. So the actions can be defined and configured in Control Point under Control Point Compliance Actions. Control Point is a prerequisite, obviously, for Sensitive Content Manager, in case you didn't know. And in here, you should be able to, under the Control Compliance Actions, take action on the results you're seeing. So here is an example of how that looks in Control Point. Let's take a look at the available actions here under the Control Point Compliance Actions. For each level of sensitivity, mild, moderate, or severe, you can choose one, take no action, and alert selected users. Number two is quarantine the items and send out a notification to select users. Number three is you can start an approval workflow with selected users. And number four, you can remove content and alert selected users as well. Alternatively, you can create a control point policy, which is triggered when new content is added. And thereby you can catch a potential sensitive content source as soon as it's uploaded, pretty much. So that is done in the control point policies. And if you go to the next slide, there's some other options from the compliance perspective if you go into the compliance summary. So you can find the scan results underneath here. And under the summary, you will be able to view the items affected by compliance actions. You'll be able to view detailed security analysis, and then you'll be able to manage quarantine items. And that is pretty much what I wanted to present to you today. So let's open up the floor and see if you have any questions. So the first question I see here is, what is GDPR? Yeah, so great question. So obviously that is a common term when you talk about sensitive content. It stands for General Data Protection Regulation. It's a legal framework that sets guidelines for collecting and processing personal information of individuals within the EU. All right, next question. So The question is, what is Memoranda 1712? Memoranda 1712, or just M1712, is the official guidance from the White House Office of Management and Budget, and it's sent out to executive agencies on how to prepare and respond to data breaches involving personal and identifiable information. And the next question is, okay, so what constitutes a data incident? Yeah, so in M1712, you work with the data incidents and data breaches. So a data incident is an occurrence that actually imminently jeopardizes without lawful authority the integrity, confidentiality, or availability of information or an information system, or constitute a violation or imminent threat of violation of law, security policies, security procedures, or acceptable use policies. So that's the official definition of a data incident according to M1712. And then I mentioned the data breach. So what constitutes a data breach according to M1712? So that would be the loss of control, compromise, unauthorized disclosure, unauthorized acquisition, or any similar occurrence where a person other than an authorized user accesses or potentially accesses personally identifiable information, or an authorized user accesses or potentially accesses personally identifiable information for an other than authorized purpose.